Opening our program is Dr. Dania Thafer, Executive Director of the Gulf International Forum. In addition to her role at the Forum, she is a Professorial Lecturer at Foreign Services Center for Contemporary Arab Studies at Georgetown University. Expertise in the Gulf region security dynamics, U.S. Gulf relations, and of course, the political economy of the GCC states. Her knowledge is on full display in her new book, Creative Insecurity, Institutional Inertia and Youth Potential in the GCC. Let's get started with our program. Dr. Thafer.
Good morning. I'm delighted to extend a warm welcome to our guests and esteemed speakers to the 5th Annual Gulf International Conference, themed Prosperity and Security of the Gulf Region and U.S. Interest in a Changing World Order. Today, I am pleased to present a lineup of 6 intellectually stimulating panels encompassing a spectrum of dimensions, such as U.S. Gulf relations, the dynamics of great power competition, the influence of soft power, the pressing issue of climate change, the emphasis on youth-centric economic development, and the intricate interplays between the Gulf and other regional powers. Since 2021, the Gulf Cooperation Council states had anticipated a period of regional de-escalation, with a collective emphasis on economic priorities, only to find themselves confronted with a renewed and intensified escalation of the region's longest-standing conflict, creating a precarious and unpredictable regional security environment. The United States and the Gulf states do hold a unified view on this critical issue. The escalation of regional conflict does not align with their national interest. However, the possibility of regional conflagration poses a significant threat to their collective security and has brought them to a critical threshold. As one navigates through the administration's 2022 National Security Strategy, it's worth noting that the section dedicated to the Middle East, the subtitle is Support De-Escalation and Integration in the Middle East. The National Security Strategy lists 4 core objectives relating to the Gulf region. The first one is countering Iran's destabilizing actions. The second, safeguarding freedom of navigation in vital waterways. The third, countering terrorism. And the fourth, preventing the growing influence of China and Russia in the Gulf region. And all of these are specific to the Gulf region. Given the recent developments, these objectives appear quite distant from the current reality on the ground. The superficial, surface-level de-escalation, primarily driven by optics rather than durable solutions, overlook the deep grievances of the people in the region. The region's longest neglected conflict escalated with Hamas's surprise and brutal attack on October 7th, killing more than 1,200 Israelis, followed by another brutal campaign, the relentless month-and-a-half-long campaign in Gaza, resulting in over 11,000 deaths at last count, with almost half of them children. This is just another manifestation of the numerous crisis points that could lead to regional instability. We should heed the glaring warning. If the root causes of discontent of the people in the region are not addressed, security for everyone will be threatened. The current explosion demonstrates that the U.S. has neglected to work for its stated goal, a 2-state solution. And this failure has led to great insecurity and devastation for both Palestinians and Israelis, harmed American interests, and frankly brought the threat to the Gulf. Speaking of the Gulf region, a key component of America's national security strategy is the effort to counter Iran's destabilizing activities. With tensions running high in the Middle East, even a small spark has the potential to set the entire region ablaze. The United States grapples with a complex dilemma, caught between its main imperative of avoiding a regional war and its backing of the ongoing Gaza war. With each passing day, the war continues, avoiding conflagration becomes increasingly difficult. Iran holds the key. The stark reality is that the Gaza conflict grants Iran increased influence in the Middle East. The world watches anxiously as Iran wields the authority to determine whether the Gaza conflict escalates into a regional war. Any miscalculation could thrust the United States and the Gulf states into a new and calamitous frontline. Even if a regional war does not break out, the United States must not underestimate the fact that Iran views the images of tens and thousands of violent Palestinian deaths as a strategic gain. And with each horrific photo, Iran gains more credibility and legitimacy among the Arab public, particularly those who have not directly experienced its brutality. As the Gaza war continues, the U.S. will further isolate its allies and partners in the Gulf and risk them forging closer relations with Iran. Saudi Arabia may view Israel as an important force to counter Iran, but the Gaza war has resulted in Saudi Arabia having the most intimate engagement with Iran seen in more than a decade. Another objective of the national security strategy is to counter terrorism. FBI Director Christopher Wray emphasized that the Gaza war has led to an uptick in threats against the United States, warning that the country is in a precarious period with various terrorist groups attempting to exploit the conflict for their own objectives. The Gaza war has enabled Iran to enhance its influence and gain more support for its proxy forces in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen. Additionally, there has been a surge in threats targeting U.S. military bases in the Middle East, creating major risks for the Arab Gulf states as well. A crucial national security priority for the U.S. is ensuring the unhindered freedom of navigation in critical waterways. One cannot help but wonder why the Houthis declared war on Israel, given that Yemen does not share a border with Israel. The significance of this instance cannot be understated. It carries both an escalatory and symbolic message that reverberates within the context of expanding the conflict. From the standpoint of the GCC state, it is highly conceivable that this message serves as an indication to the global community of their capacity and technological prowess to potentially target the Gulf states and U.S. interests in the region. This increases the risk of conflict for the Gulf states, especially Saudi Arabia, as it already intercepted missiles heading to Israel. Saudi Arabia, a crucial U.S. partner, is in a dangerous position. They must defend their territory while simultaneously risking the perception of siding with Israel, which could be misconstrued by an already aggrieved public. More such incidents could disrupt world oil markets, posing a significant threat to the already fragile global economy, creating an additional source of disruption alongside the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. We are also in an era where the U.S. no longer possesses unchallenged power and influence. The Middle East is currently a contested arena with multiple regional and international players vying for influence, including the U.S. The U.S. is now especially vulnerable when it comes to soft power and public relations after this war. People and policymakers in the Gulf often point to double standards as to how the West rallied for Ukraine while turning a blind eye to the suffering of Palestinians in the Gaza war. The national security strategy aimed to bolster positions of the rule-based international order has grown hollow in the eyes of the populists and governments, as I'm hearing. Before this, the rule-based order had already experienced a notable erosion of trust from the Gulf states, and now it is at a risk of complete loss of legitimacy, opening another avenue for China and Russia to exploit and expand their influence in the Middle East. China is likely to use the Gaza war to try to diminish Washington's global influence while boosting its own. Beyond the advantage gains from diverting global attention away from its conflict in Ukraine through a Middle East war, Russia benefits from undermining US influence and bolstering Iran as a potential pole in Russia's envisioned world order. The US's unyielding stance supporting the war does not bode well for the domestic stability of the GCC states. Pressured by an enraged Arab public, the Gulf states could reach a tipping point where satisfying the demands of the inflamed population becomes the core national security imperative. The images of the violent deaths, crippling injuries, and trauma suffered by the Palestinians in Gaza have galvanized and enraged even the most apolitical people in the Gulf. Grief and anger has reached an unbelievable level that many people have gone even to the extent to canceling their weddings, just to highlight how upset people are in the region. Even those generally considered pro-American in the Gulf now view the US synonymous with Israel, feeding a growing fury and indignation with each passing day. This is the sentiment that we've gouged in the region. In recent years, there's an emergence of post-colonial thought as a popular intellectual framework among the youth majority in the GCC. This intellectual shift has, to some extent, overshadowed the once prominent influence of political Islam and Arab nationalism. Post-colonial thought has led to a reevaluation of historical narratives, emphasizing on the legacy of colonialism, self-determination, and the rights of oppressed people. You can see these themes manifesting in the most recent debates and discussions in the Gulf about the Gaza war. The change in discourse represents a notable evolution, causing a more potent response to the war from a new generation, resurrecting and reinvigorating strong mobilization for the plight of the Palestinians. The prospect of an Israeli-Saudi deal is out of question while the war in Gaza continues. As the death toll increases, so will Saudi Arabia's price for normalization with both Israel and America, most likely. A forced displacement of Palestinians would probably be the death sentence to Saudi normalization. Regional stability is a strategic imperative for Saudi Arabia and the GCC states, as it provides a necessary security and confidence for economic infrastructure development and long-term prosperity for their 23 visions. Many observers have linked the recent attempt of regional de-escalation and the GCC's balancing of East and West to their ambitious, innovation-led economic diversification plans, centered on human capital policies, harnessing the energies of their large, young labor forces. The ventures under these initiatives include, but are not limited to, investments in tourism, international sports, artificial intelligence, fintech, green tech, and defense localization. Soft power has remained an important tool for the strategic engagement of the Gulf states. They have utilized diplomatic relations and economic might to increase their presence in international crisis mediation, while working to promote their image abroad through various investments, such as in media and in sports. And within the past half-decade, the GCC states have facilitated negotiations between the United States and the Taliban, Pakistan and India, Russia and Ukraine, with the most recent iteration of Qatar's mediation with the hostage exchanges between Hamas and the Israeli government. The GCC states have played a particularly outsized role in climate action, hosting dozens of climate-related events and gaining plaudits from the international community. Throughout the day, our panel of experts will comprehensively delve into the subject I delineated earlier, aiming to provide insights into intricate political landscapes, societal frameworks, and geopolitical trajectories that underpin the current state of affairs in the Gulf region. The fact that this conference can attract such a diverse audience, comprising of diplomats, scholars, policymakers, entrepreneurs, and students, underscores the undeniable truth that the keen interest in the region's future transcends beyond geographic boundaries. Thank you.